The world record for the youngest player to ever beat the GM has been broken. Only 4 weeks ago, I made a video about Leonid Ivanovic beating a Grandmaster at the tender age of 8 years and 11 months old. Today, Ashwath Kaushik, please God let this be the right pronunciation. Whenever I say a name that's not English, I completely butcher it and people ridicule me for it in the comments. Just once I want to say it correctly. Ashwath Kaushik broke the record in the Burgdorf Open in Switzerland. And the crazy thing is, I was there. I also played in this tournament, and honestly I was flabbergasted at how young Ashwath actually is. Like, I can tell you he's 8 years and 6 months old, but seeing him, this little boy, among all the other adult players, playing on board 2 of the freaking tournament was almost surreal. I can tell you right now, this kid is going places. And if you don't believe me, watch this video of him solving endgame puzzles. Blindfolded.
Ashwath, these are very tough ones, okay? 473. So I will read out a position with the pieces. Then I will read out 6-7 moves that are played. Okay? You need to think carefully and then tell me what is the next move. You understand what to do? Okay. White. King D6. Bishop G2. Pawns A6, E4. Black. King H4. Bishop D4, D for Delhi. Pawns on E5, G3, H5. Got it? I'll repeat.
Got it.
Black.
No
need. Okay, now the moves from this position. A7. Bishop takes A7. King takes E5. King G4. King D5. H4. E5. H3. Bishop takes H3. King takes H3. E6. Think. Black to move. Think and tell me the answer.
Got it.
What?
And count. There's another move except bishop c5, king takes c5, g2, e7, and g1 equal queen check.
Before we start into the game, a quick shout out to his father Sriram, who kindly sent me his son's game and has the most wholesome Twitter account I have seen in a long time. You can really tell that he is insanely proud of his son. We have Ashwath playing with white and Polish Grandmaster Jacek Stopa, just once I want to say it correctly, playing with black. E4 and black responds with D6, the Peer's or the modern defense, but it later transposes into more of a Philidor. We get D4, principled move, knight's coming out, Ashwath also develops his knight, and E5. And after this, it really does look like a Philidor. Like, remember this position? If you play the Philidor defense in just a mildly strange way, not even that strange actually, you usually get to a position like this. And if you play the knight here, we are actually exactly at the move of the game. So white continues to develop his pieces, and this is all very normal, all theory. We have castles and h3. Black plays c6, and we have a4 gaining space on the queen side. Also preventing b5, which usually is a little bit annoying with the bishop and the further push. So this is all theory still. a5 with rook to e1 and h6. Bishop to a2, rook to e8, and this bishop is also getting developed. Now the bishop moves back, and this is a common theme in these e4, e5 openings, to use this bishop as a defensive resource for those pawns. And I will show you an example afterwards what could happen if the bishop wasn't there. White develops the queen, black also develops the queen, and we have knight to h4. This knight maneuver also is very common, and most of the time you want to play the knight to f5. In this game, something completely different happens, and this is also the reason why this bishop is here. So right now, knight to f5 isn't too good. Yes, the knight looks very good here, and this is standard stuff. And just to show you why this bishop is important here, if the bishop wouldn't be here, you can just instantly sacrifice. And after something like takes, this is not looking too good. Like, the queen can come into the attack, the rook can come into the attack, and in general, like, I can put on the computer here, it's a +5 for black right now. Here, the computer suggests taking. If you're confused, no, you can't take back, because there is this very active bishop there. Now, of course, with this bishop here, the whole thing doesn't work. Let's waste the move here. Because after takes, you can't really take here. Because of the queen takes. Yes, the queen is active, but you don't have enough pieces left. And if we put on the computer here, white is actually lost. It's like you can just put more pieces into the defense. And black has a very easy game here, despite having an open king. Now, of course, none of this happened. This was just some general chess information for you, if any beginners are watching. Because in the actual game, Ashwath did not play knight to f5. He played knight to g6. And if you're a beginner, you're very confused now. Like, doesn't this just hang a piece? This is one of those moves that just looks impossible. But it does not hang a piece, because there is this pin with the bishop. Black takes in the center, and this is a slight inaccuracy. What you should have done here is get more defenders into the position, and also freeing up this bishop to trade off with that bishop to completely stop white's attack. Now, the reason why he took here is a bit, well, strange, I guess. I think what he wanted to do is open up the rook, open up the center, and kind of untangle his pieces. And maybe he had the idea that with knight moves like that, you can put a lot of pressure on this e4 pawn and maybe win it later. The problem is, yes, you can put a lot of pressure in here, but after takes, first of all, those bishops are just monsters now. Like, you just let me develop my bishop for free? Why? And also, yeah, you can put some pressure on this pawn, but it's very well defended right now. And even if you manage to attack it like a couple of times, I can probably even play f3 in this position. Yes, this weakens the king side a little bit, but the pieces of black are so passive that it doesn't really matter. Now, in the game, we have the knight coming out, putting pressure on the pawn, and f4. I like this kid. Like, f4 is the kind of move I would think about in this position and be too afraid to play it. f4, of course, just gains space, gets an attack, tries to open up the king, and white realizes that those pieces are very active. I mean, look at those pieces, my god. I can't even draw enough arrows for that. And black's pieces are just not active at all. Like, they're all chilling back here. Like, don't let your pieces chill, they should work. So black plays the bishop to e6, forcing a trade of bishops. This bishop is just way too good back here, and if you're wondering why it's a force, if you try to not trade the bishop, you lose your knight, because now the pin is unpinned. So white first takes this bishop, black takes back, and here he plays f5. And the computer thought this was an inaccuracy. And I don't agree with the computer. Now, of course the computer is right. Like, I know about chess. I know nothing. Oh, I shouldn't swear. I'm sorry. I will censor that because kids are probably watching. I don't know nothing about chess. So, of course the computer is right. But here what the computer wanted is to take the bishop. And after knight takes, move back the bishop, because this bishop is attacked and you want to keep your black square bishop. Rook in the middle, and here the computer says white is better. Now, if you would show me this position, and you would show me the position that actually happened in the game, I would prefer the actual position every day in the week. Because if you look at this, yes, white is pretty active, but this bishop is a little bit inactive back here. Those knights look pretty good, and those rooks look pretty good. That looks pretty decent for black. And if you compare that to the thing that actually happened in the game, after f5 we have takes and takes, I like this much better from white's perspective. This knight is still inactive. Yes, the rook is a little bit iffy back here, but it's alright, The bishop's looking good, queen's looking good, and black's pieces just somehow seem uncoordinated. So, while the computer might think that this is an inaccuracy, from a human perspective, I think this is better playable than white, but then again, I know nothing about chess. So, we have f6, and at this point you probably already knew that black will lose this game, because black broke the Ben Feingold rule to never play f6. So, I mean, here was set in stone. Of course, f6 was a decent move here, but never play f6. We have the queen coming to f4, knight d7, and knight to d1. I don't know why. This move looks a little bit weird, admittedly, and maybe I would figure this out if I had a good night's sleep, but as I told you before, I also was at this tournament today, so I played a whole day of chess, and yesterday as well, and the day before as well. My brain is just over at that point. It's pretty late in the night as well, so maybe I could figure out the reason for this move on another day. Right now, knight to d1 just looks weird. I mean, the reason probably is to reroute it to f2, what we see afterwards, relieve some of the pressure, maybe here make the knight a bit better, but yeah, I don't know. Really don't know. This knight gets moved into the center, rook to a3, and the king to h7. King to h7 prevents some future problems with rook to g3, because with this pin, it's a little bit unpleasant. And after king to h7, if you go here, I still have time to put something here, for example, prevent everything of that, and also there's not a pin to begin with. So king to h7, the knight goes to f2. Again, I don't really understand the rerouting, but then again, I also know nothing about chess. We have the queen coming to f7, looking to infiltrate on c4. And this is a critical moment in the game, actually. Right now, we had a lot of small maneuvers, or maybe also big maneuvers, and you could see that like tactics were creeping on every corner, but we have never actually gotten to the tactic because both players anticipated them and stopped them before they were happening. Now queen to c4 will prove some difficulties, and you will see this. Now the right move here would have been b3 to stop queen c4 completely, but this is not an easy move to play. Like, this just shuts down your rook that you put here before so it gets more active, and now you shut it down completely. Probably not too good. That's also why the computer suggests, instead of knight to f2, to put the rook on g3 now, so afterwards b3 does not shut down the rook. Now, Ashwath did not play that. Understandable. He played g4, really going for it on the king side. But now the queen infiltrates on c4, and this is unpleasant. Like, first of all, this is a fork. And yes, you can save this, but you have to be very careful how. If you play absent-mindedly something like c3, as I said before, tactics are lurking everywhere. This knight is just able to fork you. And yes, you can take, but there's another knight, and now white is just lost. You will lose the exchange. So Ashwath finds a way to stop this. It's queen to d2, protecting both. We have b6, next we have king to g2 and rook to a7, probably trying to double up. We get h4 and d5 striking in the center. b3 finally gets played, kicking out the queen, and this is again a very critical move in the game. Now what black should have done is retreat the queen to a6, and this is not an easy move to play. Again, because you don't want to deactivate your own queen like that, but it would have been the best move, because after the alternative, which is queen to b4, forcing a queen trade, you have to trade queens now, because it's kind of a fork. If you try to save the rook, you lose the bishop, and if you try to keep the bishop, you lose the rook. We have this trade, and yes, this attacks the rook, but you just move back. And now this a-pawn has no one in front of him. And this will be the downfall of GM Stopa. He takes in the center. Now before you take back, you first take the knight. Because you have to take back with the pawn, there's no other way to take back. And now this a-pawn is a passer. And this is dangerous. Also, you have double pawns now. White is now better, because the pawn structure is better. Doubled pawns aren't always bad, but in this situation, they are doubled and backwards. They are good in the endgame, or they can be good in the endgame, when they help to push another pawn. But the pawns that they could push is, the only one is the B pawn, and it's in front of them. So now it's just a weakness. We have knight takes e4 attacking the weak pawn, and yes, you can save it, but now your rook is just kind of stuck there. You might get it out with something like this, but this is just looking unpleasant, especially if white has active rooks. So black played another move, and black blundered hardcore. Now, I think he was in time trouble. They probably both were, because we are on move 32 now. Both players got 90 minutes to start with and 30 seconds increment at every move starting from move 1. But still, after 32 moves and a complicated double-edged game like that, you need a lot of time to calculate, so they probably were both very low on time here. And black blundered. Black played knight takes g4. And you can stop the video here and see if you find the winning idea for white. Ashwath played knight to g5 check. Discovered attack on the rook. Black took and white takes the rook, and now white is up the exchange. But this isn't won. Yes, white is much better here. The computer gives an evaluation of +4. But honestly, I would hate playing this with white. Not because it's difficult to play, but because white is probably low on time and winning against the GM, but there are still a lot of things that could go wrong. Especially with a knight on the board, there are a lot of possibilities to hang forks in time trouble and stuff like that. If I would play this, I would probably be shaking because I was so nervous. But Ashwath maybe even has the benefit of being such a young child and probably not fully realizing how big his achievement will be if he wins against this GM. So we get the knight going back, attacking the rook. He plays there, attacking the weak pawn. We have g4, and now you see what I mean, because after takes and the rook going here, this is still looking dangerous. Now, white can almost not blunder here, because the rooks are far away from the king, so none of the checks are very dangerous, but this still looks unpleasant. Now white really keeps his cool here, and he just pushes. You have a passed pawn, you might as well push it. Black gives this check and infiltrates with the rook. White moves out of the way, allowing another check, but realizing it's just not dangerous. You just take another pawn, and there are no bad follow-up checks. I want the nerves this child has. Honestly, I would be terrified to walk into a check like that. Black doesn't even play the check, but black moves up the rook to defend his pawn, and here white realizes something. And this is brilliant. White realizes that you can't stop this pawn. And he sacrifices the exchange in the endgame. How crazy is that? And after black takes, he just pushes. And yes, the rook can go to the back rank, but you just push. And now rook to e8. Okay, the pawn is stopped, but this rook will never be able to move away. And now king activity is key. King takes g4. And this king tries to assist the other rook and maybe save the pawns, but you are too slow. White is just too active. And that's why after king to f4, realizing that you can't stop white from taking all of your pawns and pushing his own afterwards, black resigned. And Ashwath Kaushik became the youngest player ever to beat a Grandmaster in classical chess.